Okay, step 7. It's been a bit. If you're following along, not if you just clicked on the next video. It's been as long as it took you to click. But I've been feeling well, under the weather, other stuff happening, but we carry on, continue, and we are at step 7. Humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. And then this step really is based on humility. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And in the book, the book that started it all, this is an interesting one when we talk about kind of the original manuscript and changes that were made. In this one, I don't know if you can ever, yeah, you can see how that's kind of just marked up. I started something I shouldn't have. Yeah, you can see how that's kind of marked up there. So it's step 7. The original version that Bill wrote, which has been crossed out a bit, humbly, on our knees, asked him to remove our shortcomings, holding nothing back. So original version, humbly on our knees, asked him to remove our shortcomings, holding nothing back, has been changed to humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. So really just a greater emphasis on humility in the original version, and then kind of this other idea of revisiting step 6 with entirely ready. Bill was asked at one point what's the difference between a shortcoming and a defect, and he said nothing. He just didn't want to use the same word twice, right, back to back in steps. So same thing, shortcomings, defects, same thing. If we go to step 7 in the 12 and 12, if you ever are wondering what the real nature of step 7 is, if you look at the 12 and 12, starts on page 70, it ends on page 76, up to page 75, it just talks about humility. And then page 76 at the very top begins as we approach the actual taking of step 7. And so the whole chapter essentially is just on humility and what humility is, why, how the lack of humility has gotten in our way, and why humility is so needed for this step. And so just to share a couple very brief parts of that, the idea of step 7, 6 and 7, if we're kind of just lumping them together, is getting to the causes and conditions. So it's, we've asked that this obsession be removed, and when we finally admitted that we were alcoholic and asked that a higher power remove this obsession, we may have thought, well, thank goodness that's over, and isn't this going to be great from here on out? Only to be shocked by, man, this is, not only is this not easy, but for some of us, this is a lot worse than it was before. And people have even heard, I liked you better drinking, right? There's a lot going on here that I don't like. And so, well, that's what's underneath the drinking. You didn't drink just because the taste was so good. It's because of what was happening in your life to lead you to drinking. And that's what 6 and 7 are getting at. So this says we reluctantly came come to grips with those serious character flaws that made problem drinkers of us in the first place. Flaws which must be dealt with to prevent a retreat into alcoholism once again. So if we don't take 6 and 7, if we don't do this step, then those same defects are what's going to drive us back into alcoholism, or I would say alcoholic behavior. Right? So the way, I have another video on the Jellic chart, the way that the relapse occurs is we start regressing in our behavior. Our character defects start to come out in our lives. A very good member of AA, Bill Reed, used to say we start working the steps in reverse. So the defects come back. And so we start taking our will back. And so if we don't get at this is what leads back to the drink. But the solution, it's a wonderful solution. It's what's been talked about in several of the steps before. It's what underlines this whole program. Is that we realize that we're the problem, that we've been in the way. And then there's this wonderful part here that says that we had to get the idea that a higher power was sort of a Bush League pinch hitter. And the notion of God helping a little now and then began to evaporate. Refusing to place God first had deprived ourselves of his help. So me being first, me being in charge, using God as a 911, as an emergency, is actually what deprived me of the power. I got in my own way. And then it talks about kind of what really is at the core of all this. We would like to be assured that the grace of God can do for us what we cannot do for ourselves. We have seen that character defects based upon short-sighted and unworthy desires, short-sighted and unworthy desires, are the obstacles that block our path towards these objectives. We now clearly see that we have been making unreasonable demands upon ourselves, upon God, upon others, and upon God. The chief activator of our defects has been self-centered fear. And so we come to the working up step 7 in the big book. It just goes through the prayer and it offers something. It says something like this. This is just a suggestion. My Creator, I'm now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defective character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. It says we have then completed step 7. So the asking, the willingness with the humility, the asking has completed step 7. Where I believe many of us trip up, and my profession is part of this, is that we confuse step 7, and that I think that's why Bill in the first verse said on our knees, because it proves that there's not work for us to do. We're asking, humbly asking, true humility from the knees. That's ultimate humility. What we do is we get in there, we find the causes and conditions, we find the core issues, and then what do? Well, I'll work on them. Now I know the problem. No one's half the battle. The other half is I'll work to dig them out. I don't see that anywhere in here. I don't see that anywhere in here. I see that in here. I see this idea of, oh, well, I know how to combat fear. I know all kinds of ways to combat fear. I can get rid of my fear right now, today. Easy. Is it the right way? Mm-mm. Does it work? A little bit, for a short period of time. Then it comes back. And I have additional consequences as a result. So I'm asking for them to be removed. I think the helpful thing to consider is, and then I assume they are. I assume that at this point, my relationship with my higher power, my faith, this is where I really am making good on my third step decision. I assume that this is working and it's good, and what I've asked for is done. It's done. I've asked for it to be removed. It's gone. And so now what do? Well, if my fear's been removed, well, now I live in faith. If my hate, anger, resentment's been removed, now I live in love, acceptance, patience, tolerance. So if there's work to be done, the work is that I live in the opposite way of the defects, of the shortcomings. Because they've been removed. Unless I don't mean any of this. Unless I'm just talking here. Unless I'm just playing a game. But to really see this work, to really prove that this works, I assume that what I've asked has been done, and I act in accordance with that belief. And that's the power. That is faith with works, which is not dead, very much alive. And that's the power of the seventh step, is that I'm really able to make good on that third step decision. The other thing is, I've already practiced for this. This isn't the first time being asked to do this. I've done this in the first step. I've done this in the second step. I've already asked. I've already come to God humbly. And I've seen it work. So I can use that to my advantage. So try it. Give it a shot. And then act in accordance with what you've asked for. And see if that doesn't yield much, much better results than working on all this stuff and trying to dig all this out. I'm not saying there's no work to be done. If there's trauma where, there's that work. I'm talking about these defects, these shortcomings. Hey, do you mind? I'm making a video. Do you mind? She's just, if she doesn't get attention. All right, look. You happy? There you go. You want to say anything? Want to say anything? You good? Okay, I'll be done in a minute. Yep, no, I know. All right, I'm sorry about that. So, anyway, step 7. We'll get on with the other ones. See you next time.